ideas. Hopefully it'll give you ideas to do those projects I'm going to talk about better. Figure out what sort of deals can you swing here with some of the members. What sort of projects can you implement from sustainability? Move your companies, your businesses, your groups forward. So I'd like to let everybody know that I do work for a big company. But at the same time, I love working with small companies. Love working with nonprofits. Love working with governmental groups, academia, you name it, because it really is that multidisciplinary approach that is going to take us to the next level, keep the sustainability train moving forward. I look at what I do and I feel like I'm on a runaway freight train sometimes. And someday when I jump off it, I hope that there's people like you and particularly young people as well moving things on. As you can tell, I got a little gray, and that 35 years Deb mentioned is actually 38 now. So hopefully some of those years' experience will be passed on, because that's what we try to do. So I'd like to show you what I do too, and I titled this one "Stuff, Things, and People Working to Grow Economies and Communities," because it really is about economics, it's about jobs, it's about community resilience. That's what sustainability is about, right? Okay. All right, so this is what I do for a living. And that's what I do. I'm a modern tree hugger, and I say that because I own a couple chainsaws too. And I took that tree down and heated my house. If you look at the base of that tree, you'll see the tree's dead. The tree died from emerald ash borer, right? And I got a farm up there in Michigan, and I lost probably 5,000 trees due to international trade, right? But I take that bark off those trees, and it makes really, really cool picture frames. It makes really, really cool things. Flatten it out, dry it out, and you're good to go. And it does make good heat. It makes good lumber. Okay. What I'd like to open up to with a little philosophy, I mix that in. Hopefully you would agree with some of these concepts. And can you imagine, I'm going to have to step away a little bit so I can even read this thing. Can I pull this off?
Yep.
Okay. So, can you imagine industry helping to find solutions to our greatest sustainability challenge? Is our greatest sustainability challenge water issues, waste issues? Is it fluent issues? What is it? What is our greatest sustainability challenge worldwide and locally? Climate change? Is it? Okay. I like to think it is what I call global turbulence. That's our greatest sustainability challenge. So what is global turbulence? We're experiencing it. Everybody here is seeing it on TV, or you're personally experiencing it. It's floods, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, terrorism, crime, poverty, disease, hunger. If we were able to take those things on from a sustainability perspective, I think our world would be a better place. And that can be done by implementing sustainability type projects. And isn't it ironic though that people that are going through these situations, all these very challenging scenarios, isn't it ironic that sustainability is the last thing on their mind, right? But it is those very sort of things that will help them through that and help our communities grow. Okay, just an example. I don't think they care about sustainability right now, the people that own those houses. But it is that climate change issue that somebody mentioned that just might be happening here. The amount of migration happening around the world today is just amazing, probably more so than Earth has ever seen. And again, it's what sustainability professionals can do to help much, much beyond your job, and I'm going to give a few examples of how you can do that. Okay. You're looking at a picture from the 1960s. This is a General Motors factory. not unlike any other plant around the country or around the world. In fact, around the world today, there are factories that look just like that as well. But through sustainable technologies, one in particular, filtration. By the way, this was Saginaw, Michigan, as a foundry. It's still operating today. You drive by there today, and it's pristine, and they're producing just as many parts. So, can you imagine when we apply green chemistry to some of these processes, how things have improved through binders and resins and sand and casting and processing and machining and filtration, all those various things that we do, material substitutions and so on, to make our world a better place, to provide goods and services, create jobs. I guess whatever your titles are, I'd like you to think about that in terms of how many jobs might you create. There was a priest in Flint who once said that the biggest thing to stop in a bullet is a job. Okay. GM has sustainability goals, and you're seeing them there. We set 9 in 2010, that's our baseline, to meet those goals by 2020. I have pieces of all of them, but I am responsible for 2 of them, and that is the landfill-free one on the bottom, 100 manufacturing sites. So I'll be talking about landfill-free. It's zero waste, same thing for us. Definitions vary, right? We have a very, very tight, strict rule on landfill-free. There's one gatekeeper, and you're looking at him. That's the only way it'll get on the list, GM list for landfill-free. And that includes manufacturing and non-manufacturing. So whether you work in an office, or just a gorgeous location like this, or a factory, foundry, assembly plant, powertrain, machining, whatever, you can do these things. Total waste is another one I'm responsible for, and that's up a few notches. That is not generating something. How do you strive for efficiency and produce things, make things happen with nothing? It's possible. And that's really a long-term goal, right? It's kind of like a renewable energy goal there, which you're seeing, 125 megawatt, but we also have an aspirational goal of 100% renewables. We also have an aspirational goal to be a totally landfill-free company. And we're getting close. Valens a runaway freight train too. I've told our leadership, I don't really care where you set the goal, it doesn't matter, because we're blowing it away because of the enthusiasm. That's how we get things done. How about P2? Pollution prevention, right? That's kind of what we learned, pollution prevention. There's a new P2. I call it passion and persistence. It beats P2 all over the place, the old one. Passion and persistence, that's how we get things done, and you do it through enthusiasm. When a plant becomes landfill free, in GM, I take a couple hours, and man, I put together a really nice email, and I send it around, and I send it to the plant picks it up, and the plant managers are extremely competitive. They see that, and they send it to the other ones, and they send it to their bosses, and it bounces off the walls. And then all of a sudden, I get calls from our environmental engineers going, John, the plant manager called me, we gotta get this thing, how do we do this? I gotta get this done. That's how we get things done. Figuring it out, and kind of making things work from there. This is our footprint. And it follows our manufacturing, non-manufacturing, our site operational footprint. Really, this is where we're at. There's one way to get there. So it doesn't matter what the regulations are from this sort of perspective in those various areas of the world. You got to meet the same criteria. Same criteria worldwide. And those best practices are shared. I was talking to Jim earlier, and these things are done on monthly calls. So, when you say, okay, how much stuff do we got? We figured it out. We put it in trash bags. We're talking 58 million trash bags a year from landfills. Reuse. Reuse is a big thing now. We are not satisfied with traditional recycling rate. When we take and generate something just like we do at our homes, set it out the curb and we're happy and feel it, right? That's good. But where does it go? What happens to it? Who gets it? A little bit, I'll give you an example of what can happen to it. But I'd say in most cases we don't have a clue, right? Sure, our company's got some risk reduction type activities, we'll do some audits and that sort of thing.
what does that company do that we ought to with that material? That's an important thing now, especially now, we talked about it earlier, beneficial reuse, right? How do those rules pertain? How do we minimize our risk and make something into something else and still be a risk reduction type strategy? To give you another idea of our waste and how much stuff we deal with, so all right, let's do a correlation here. If you took all that we recycle and reuse every year and put it in the back end of Chevrolet Silverado pickup trucks and parked them in for rent, in 1 year, that which we recycle and reuse would wrap that line created from those trucks would wrap around the world. That's how much stuff we generate every year. All right. Oops. Okay. So here's your true goal for revenue. There was a time 8-10 years ago where we were making $1.147 billion from our recycling. And when I put that number together, and by the way, I'm not just a spokesperson kind of going around talking. I actually am responsible to make these happen and the projects and everything around them. So, I got with the different groups, when you get 38 years, you get to know a lot of people in companies. So I got with the different groups that have these silos of budget, silos of finance, and I said, how much money are you making from all this stuff? And we started putting it all together, when that over $1 billion thing came up, people's jaws dropped. They couldn't believe it. And it took us from the waste pad to mainstream. We said, this is part of our business now, right? Not just those environmental guys off in the corner somewhere. Just tell me what I got to do on the road. So all of a sudden we created a project called byproducts. And I'm going to give you an example of that. Byproducts, meaning trash, sludge, swarf, cardboard, plastics, you name it, it all counts. In fact, it all counts in our zero waste program too. But the true goal really is to generate zero. If you generate zero revenue, and I tell that all the time, you generate zero, that means you're efficient. You've consumed your materials in your process. What's it cost about the end? Alright. This is a project. We were making money just shipping this stuff to foundries and selling it. We were getting a few cents a pound, right? It's metal, swing metal. We get a little dash, something slightly wrong with that. And now, with quality as it is, it's not going to do. Not going to happen. So what do we do with it? Throw up a scrap heap. We were selling the metal. So wait a minute, this is pretty good stuff. And by the way, there's these like-kind qualities coming in, and they're competing with our customer care after sales parts. Why don't we get into business? At the time, it was like an $8 billion business in U.S. alone. So we said, all right, let's start. So we did. We started lining these things up, and we pitched it to our executive leadership. And this was called the Vehicle Component Recovery Project. A lot of people in there for many years prior to that. You can't do that. Why not? There's actually insurance companies out there that specify like-kind quality, meaning they're not going to use originals. Check your policies. They may say that in there. But then they let the people know this is what you're getting. And now we're in a market we never worked before. That was an environmental project. It was also a sustainability project. All right. We like doing circular economy. How many of you have heard of circular economy? It's a big deal now, right? Kind of a buzzword, right? Okay. So, it took that top one probably 6 years to get done. Some of these things take time. I wanted to take all this cardboard, and people were saying, John, we got all this cardboard, we're drowning in cardboard. What do we do with it? Okay, let's get some returnables in there. That helps, right? Okay, let's get this recycled, let's bale it. And we sell it to recyclers. Okay, we can do that. That's not good. We're a carpenter. What else can we do with cardboard? Well, we can do this. So we got with the materials engineers and product engineers, and we met at an auto show in Detroit with a company that you might have heard of, Bradburn, one of the biggest companies in our country. But said, hey, we need cardboard part. I want to generate it out of our plants, want to process, and bring it right back into our plants as a build part. This is what we did. This is a substrate for the Buick LaCrosse down in Fairfax. Part of the quiet ride in that vehicle. It's a headliner substrate, 35% cardboard. Okay, we'll pass it around. This is part of our show and tell. Deb, why don't you go ahead? Pass it around. Buick Verano did the same thing. These projects weren't easy, I'll tell you. This one was tough. It'd take on several people to get done. But when you're right, and you got the environment behind you, you can usually get her done with dollars a day. Got a few arguments on that one too. We got 35% cardboard here out of our Orion, Michigan plant. Post-consumer polyester fibers, federal mobile product going into the Buick Verano. So from cardboard in the plant, process, bring it right back to the same plant into the vehicle. Okay, pass that one around. That's our cardboard part project. GMC Sierra, our trucks, packaging aids, a lot of you got them, polyethylenes, greater specification, designed for the environment situation. Now we're taking those caps and plugs, about 200,000 pounds a year out of each assembly plant. We got about 12 assembly plants in the U.S. Those are going and making deflectors. I'm going to show you a part of one in here in a minute. Those are going around the country now in the form of truck parts into a commodity called functional black plastic. Okay. Chevy Volt, old tires, Milford proving grounds, you may not know that when a vehicle is built, prior to that, many tires are tested to get the exact fit, so the performance of the vehicle works. So those parts, that the vehicles and those tires have to fit and mesh perfectly. We generate some scrap, 2 semi-loads a month. Those are going into a company and they're making parts, water and air baffles as well, and I'm going to show you one in a minute. All right, here's some weird ones. On the left, these are trays coming in from China that are for engine control module circuit boards going into the truck engine control modules. So little chips go inside those. On the left, the black trays on the picture on the left, those are the parts without the coating. I put a coating on them. It's an anti-chip, PVC. And then I thought, geez, these things could make shingles. And we're working on a project now to make shingles out of those very scrap pieces. No, the recyclers don't want them. They're glass filled. It's a composite material, and I think most of you know composites are extremely difficult to recycle. Reuse is the new thing. What can we find? It's not about seeing something as it is. It's about seeing what it can become. And reuse helps our total waste too, because we built into our goal, if you reuse something and market it as such, it'll take it out of your total waste numbers. The clients love that, and it helps drive that motivation. I coated those with some epoxy and sand. I coated those thinking, you know what? We do a lot of wildlife work because we got a wildlife habitat goal, and I love wildlife and that sort of thing. So I thought, let's coat those and let's see if we can make these, which is an interesting thing. And we'll put these into some bat houses. It was buried. So this is covered with a polyester and a sand. These are those trays. And the bats cling to these very well. We make bat houses out of them, and I'm going to show you a picture of those soon. So again, this is taking a waste that would have been burnt to energy, because our Kokomo plant's landfill free. It would have to go to energy. We don't really want to do that. We do it very minimally. By the way, our landfill free plants were only about 6% going to energy. So those really cool looking structures on the right, it's next to a Chevrolet Corvette. Our Bowling Green plant is making the Corvette, and it's a composite type body, so it's not welded together. You can't necessarily weld SMC or a composite type material, so we got to glue it. Corvette's glued together. It's an amazingly strong material. So I coated that with some PVC, put some sand on it, and I thought, you know what? Those would work really good as a stalactite. So we've got those in some artificial hibernaculum for bats. And by the way, how many of you heard of the white nose syndrome? It's killed about 10 million bats so far in our country. It's devastating. And by the way, when you have all these bats die, you know what you do? You got to use a lot of pesticides, right? Because the bats take care of so many billions and billions of insects. And that affects our crops. And that affects our food source. So with that, we thought, maybe we could put a probiotic in. Maybe we could put something fungal in there, right? And we're working on that. We're working with different agencies on that. But in the meantime, we know it'll work into bat increase the square footage of those areas for them to clean to. All right, calls to action. This is how a company, a good company, can extend itself out and help others in need. You know, as an engineer, I think it's our job not to just take care of those who write your paycheck, but to take care of everybody. I look at my customers as everybody in the world, not just customers that buy our products. That's what's nice. But it's everybody in the world. So how many of you here remember the Gulf of Mexico was building crude gushing from the bottom? And how many of you thought, how can it be stopped? And they're bringing down the experts from all over the world. And also, what was happening was, they were just being bombarded down there with ideas and get-rich-quick schemers and engineers and technicians and people really wanting to help, and all these ideas were coming in. Well, we had some too because we had a little experience in those. Can you imagine in our plants and that? So I assembled a really small little group of guys, and we kind of put together an idea, and we said, we can help here. Well, how do you get in there? Well, that's maybe where a big company can be leveraged in. So, I made a few phone calls and had a few conference calls, and about 3,000 of those later, 3,000 phone calls, emails, hurry up, waits, that sort of thing, to set up a project. So we took some material. This is some of the oil boom from the Gulf of Mexico oil spill. So the dark material that you see on here is actual oil, crude from the spill. This was part of the booms that we used to clean it up. And we set up a company down there to centrifuge the booms, open them up, and you see them on the right. They're called mobile fluid recovery. They got a mobile system, and they basically centrifuged all these materials after they were spread out. This is polypropylene. Pretty good stuff. We compounded it. You're seeing some of the densified material. We compounded it into quick parts. This is a part of a Chevrolet Volt air baffle. Goes with the radiator, just part of it. Yay long. It's got 25% used oil boom from the Gulf spill in it. It's also got 25% of those caps and plugs you've seen in a previous slide from our plants. It's got post-consumer bottles, and it's a pretty darn good part. Took a little doing, a little convincing, a little passion and persistence, but we got her done. Here's some of the results. We processed 227 miles of the boom, and the materials, some of the different steps you'll see, that's the part itself, very, very small piece. And we did a little CO2 calculation as well. So that was the Gulf project. Okay, what do we do with this mess? Rochester, New York, 100-year-old plant. It's easy to make a brand new plant zero waste, isn't it? Well, not easy, but it's easier. How do you do it with a 100-year-old plant? How do you do it with a plant manager who says, hey, my buddy down the road here is landfill free. I want to do that. And by the way, don't touch my processes. Right? Jeez. All right. So I go down the tailpipe, and this is what I see. So I went to New York. I seen that. I thought, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. All right. So I said, okay. I made about 3 phone calls. Got a conference call a half hour later. They said, okay, here's what we got, guys. What do you think? And we got our buddies from the Gulf Project to centrifuge it. We got a few other folks on board, and this is what we did. Okay. This is circular, Rochester, New York. This is how we got it done. This slide was, in fact, this project was talked about in Germany last year at the G7 conference. So we centrifuge it. We get a pre-coat material. Pre-coat holds keeps the filter's life longer. Where it's basically a calcium carbonate type material. And then we get some powder that goes waste energy. The filter bags are collected. The metal fines, the metals are collected. That goes to recycling center. There was a lot of oil, a lot of liquid. The oil then, through the centrifuge process, was collected. We thought, why can't we reuse it? Well, we tested it, it had too much water. So we put a water filter in there, a water filtration type thing to pull the water out, got it back in. We saved about $13 a gallon. All that oil went right back into the screw machine that paid for the project and paid, in fact, for the entire plant's landfill-free program. Okay, so it was circular. The oil kind of went through, went right back. We got some energy out of it, and we got some recycling from the metal finds, and the metals go to, obviously, foundry applications. Okay? Another example, if you picture a donut hole for a vehicle, it'd be like the door window cutout. The window's a big piece, so when you stamp the door, you end up with a really big piece of metal. What can you do with that? Well, we can throw it down a scrap chute, right? Send it out, remelt it. But wait a minute, it's not stretched, it's not formed, it's basically virgin. Kind of odd shape. Why don't we make something out of it? Well, we did. We got with a heating, venting, air conditioning company, and that jumped on me, but that's okay. We thought just the other day, well, a few months ago, why don't we try to do something with buildings? I don't know if anybody recognizes that, but that's the brand new Penguin Museum at the Detroit Zoo. I met with those people last week too, by the way, on some projects, but basically that is very similar. So we got with the architecture school at Texas A&M, and they set up a student competition. We're going to give this the top projects a few prizes, and we shipped a bunch of the offal down there, those window cutouts, and they're going to make some shapes and things out of them for building envelopes, because the material is a high-grade steel. It's already galvanized, so it's got the first step in weather resistance. So why not do something like that? That is part of the academic piece, the cross-disciplinary work that needs to be done much, much beyond the traditional. We continually try to push that envelope, and I know you do too, is think outside the box, right? You hear that all the time. And then maybe another manager will tell you, stay in your lane. I'm wondering, wait a minute. Don't make sense. You want me to think but not do? Or what? How many of you heard both phrases? It doesn't make sense. Okay. Alright. So what can you do in Detroit with an amazingly challenged neighborhood? Here's a parking lot. What can you do that to improve people's health? Right? Health ties to economy. Economy ties to jobs. Jobs tied to sustainability, the environment, and making our world a better place, right? So, you can do this. You can put a bunch of steel baskets from Korea in that parking lot. It's not the same parking lot, but similar. It's a plant in Michigan. These are steel baskets coming in from Korea. Korea don't have a lot of wood. They don't have a lot of wood. So when they make parts for us, and they ship them in something, they're going to make them out of wood? No, they got some steel there, so they make them out of steel. That's a one-way package. It's a steel container. They got with me and said, John, what can we do with this thing? Well, I took one home and made a trailer out of it. Well, make a good trailer bed. And then somebody seen it and goes, yeah, run to Detroit. There's a company down there. And those guys are manufacturers. Maybe they'll start doing it. So I took it down there and I met with their CEO. And he goes, well, I was in the trailer business. That was a really tough business. He said, I got another idea. Why don't we do this? Let's take that parking lot and put it on there. Let's put a bunch of them on that parking lot. And let's add this. Compost. Kids. Families. That compost, by the way, is from the Renaissance Center. It's landfill free as well. It's got its own zip code. 15,000 people a day. All the restaurant and cafeteria food from there gets composted by a small company in Detroit called Detroit Dirt. It's a company that composts it and sends this material around. It's a really cool scenario. We shipped that material in, enlisted some of the families in Mexican town, and this is what we got. We've got 1,600 of these baskets around Detroit now, many gardens. They're not all in one place. This is the Cadillac Garden. It was the flagship. Every Saturday, the families from that community, extremely challenged community, it's in Mexican town, come in and they get these vegetables. The Ideal Group there has partnered with us on that. And by the way, that's a former GM facility where we used to make Cadillacs back in the 1960s. So it really is a great community outreach done only possible from those activities of the community to come in the different community groups.
That's the marathon project that we did last year, where we shipped some baskets in a marathon downriver for a garden just like that. Okay. I said that earlier. I think that's a good lesson in life too, right? When we look at each other, what can we become? We're all works in progress, and so is waste. So is stuff. And stuff can help things. And I'm going to show you some things that this very thing's helping. So here's a Chevrolet Volt battery, 460 pounds worth. Inside, it pushes the volt completely. The biggest challenge of recycling that, by the way, we said that Brownstown Township, south of Detroit plant that makes all those batteries, it's going to be landfill free from the launch. The biggest challenge was that material right there. It's a composite. It's a glass-filled SMC type material. You can't recycle it. It won't happen. You can't melt it. You can heat it and heat it and heat it and heat it. Eventually it'll burn up. All right? High quality demand for high quality apparatus, and that's the lithium ion battery. All right, so what are your options? You want to be landfill free? You send it to waste energy? Nah, I don't think so. Why don't we do this? I said, okay, I'll take that and do that. That, I know what I can do with that. I know what I can do with that. Okay, so I took a few home and I cut out that middle section and I put it on a tree. That's what I got. 2 weeks later, my boy called me and said, Dad, I just seen a duck fly out of your box. I thought, well, I might not get it till spring, maybe a squirrel in the fall. I got that. Who here knows what that bird is? What is that bird? All right, it's wood duck. It's a hen wood duck. She's proud as can be. So the next step was, okay, if it works here, and by the way, there's about 900 of these out around North America. Okay. All the scrap makes these and other things, but that's one section. If it works here, I was down at the University of Texas, and there was a guy there, it was the U.S. Business Council for Sustainable Development meeting. There was a guy there, and his name tag said Wetlands International. I'm going, oh, I know what I talked to him about. So I said, hey, I got this project. Let me show you some pictures. I showed him. I said, do you have any birds of need? He goes, well, one of my colleagues do. And Dr. Diana, Slovenia. Dr. Diana, we're going back and forth. And I said, I got these boxes. And I sent her pictures. And she's in Russia. And one day she emails me, goes, John, I'm in Ann Arbor. Are you near there? And I'm going, oh my gosh, you're in Ann Arbor? That's 45 minutes from my house. I'll be right over. I picked her up and I took her to Ducks Unlimited, the Great Lakes office there in Ann Arbor. And they gave her the big wide aisle tour because she's some internationally recognized PhD on waterfowl. So anyway, she says, all right, we got this bird in China, red listed endangered. You're looking at one of the rarest birds on the earth coming out of a Chevrolet Volt box. That was the first time in China's history, I'm told, by them and World Wildlife Fund, who put those up, that an artificial nest box was used in waterfowl. First time in China's history. That is a scaly-sided merganser, and I've got some pictures you wouldn't believe. That's just one of them. Them babies are just following their mother's commands. After they hatch, after 90 days, the babies are just jumping up. I got pictures of them hanging onto their mother. I got them coming out like that, you name it. They can't fly, and they're jumping down 10 meters, 30 feet, hitting the ground, and they're trying to get away from tigers. That's what eats them, snakes. She laughed when I told her we got raccoons. She goes, we got those fat raccoons. We got snakes and tigers. I'm talking Tony the tigers. Right? All right. These are the sort of things you can do with waste. Remember, traditional recycling is good. It's not great. If you want your company good, ship the materials to recycle. That's good. You want your company great, push that envelope. Okay? Get it. I get in trouble all the time. But when I do, I always say, you got to do something to get in trouble. Right? And that's kind of how that happens. And this is an eastern screech owl. We call this our cross-eyed guy. All the scratch marks on that Volt box are from these birds coming in and out of it. And really photogenic bird. Eastern screech owls, they like these boxes too. All right. Peace planner. That's another part of the Volt box. Any idea why we call it peace planner?
Why would I call that a peace plant? Well, the color scheme. I think really what it's about is maybe a symbolic example of how black and white, red, yellow, and others make sense. Right? So we've got these out and about for flowers. I'm having some tests done so that we can validate them for food grade. To set more of these out and use them as kind of a raised bed, mini raised bed garden scenario for vegetables and things. But again, we got to make sure beneficial reuse rules are met. We got to make sure that risks are reduced. So we'll have to do some intense toxicology testing to see if there's any molecular uptake or issues relative to that SNC material in the root process. Okay, just an example. There's the bat house. Bunch of those all around. Again, we think this might help white wellness as well. Scouts, Boy Scouts make a lot of those, right? Hey, get your kids in Scouts. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. They get experiences. We learn through experiences. That's one advantage of having this gray, right? As we get gray, we get a few experiences on our belt, and the Scouts provide that for kids. It's a big, big deal. Okay. Circular economy is a big deal. We started a little thing called Rock Detroit, which ties the U.S. Business Council for Sustainable Development. We've got a materials marketplace there where materials are exchanged, inputs become outputs. In this case, in artists, entrepreneurs, and others. It's a very good project, and some really cool things have been done from it. And it ties to zero waste. All right, now here's my last example. This is, you do a lot of little projects. Well, some not so little, but then you do long-term projects. And part of those projects entail, what can you do with stuff? For years I was getting calls, people were saying, John, what can we do with these water bottles? They're everywhere. They're everywhere at the Renaissance Center. And people say we're zero waste, but we are zero waste. What are we doing with them? Well, we send fuel to a recycler, and the fuel can go to waste energy. We don't like that. We can do better than that, but we do it. Let's do something with it. So we started collecting water bottles at our plants. These are the generation points on the left. And then we said, you know what? I was watching on TV. I was born and raised in Flint. Grew up there. And I'm watching on national TV all these water bottles coming in. So having worked there, lived there, and we made a few phone calls. Said, hey, we got this project. Well, do your part. Do your part is about everybody, whether you're making a vehicle part or you're doing your part to put it up to the curb or just making sure it collects it or recycle it. Recycle means a lot of things, right? It means a lot of things. I'll show you what it means. Let's get those bottles all going and let's do some good with them. Okay? So, OEM typically sets up a specification. An OEM, we set up a spec. Our purchasing people puts out a request for quote. We get quotes and we source a part and let the tier 1 deal with the tier 2, the tier 2, 3, and the 4, and 5, and so on, and they end up with parts and you build a car, right? In this case, we knew what we wanted to make, and we wanted to make 3 things. So we set up the entire program, and here's the way it goes. So we got to sort and bale, we got to do that as close as possible. The idea is to keep the materials as close as possible as home as you can, right? So, one common problem with not keeping them home, and what happens to about, I'm told, 60-80% of plastics in this country is they get sent overseas. And when they get sent overseas, the company that did that makes some money, right? They went to the highest bidder. There's a problem with it. What happens to all the economics and jobs from there? Because I'll show you. If we didn't do that, we could send them to Clean Tech in Dundee, Michigan, and they would take them and wash them and turn them into a flake. They would flake those materials. And then we could go to Unify. They could chip them, turn them into chips, or densify them. Unify is in the Carolinas, because we're going into an area called the non-wovens industry, and they make things like this. They actually will send them to a company to further process them into fibers. These are water bottles. Very, very small fibers. When you get this, just kind of pull on it a little bit. Very, very small water bottles. Okay, then it goes to a company in the Carolinas called William T. Burnett, and they make fleece. Okay? We had all these people in Arkansas. Kind of unheard of in the auto industry. From there, we're cutting them into different things. Rogers Foam's doing the die cut. From there, we're sending them to Quebec, Montreal, in fact, to make an engine manifold cover. You'll see a picture of that. I couldn't get it on a plane, it's so big. From there it goes to our candy plant. And so every 6-cylinder, Chevy Equinox, GMC Terrain, coming out of the candy plant, ones running, bopping around town here and all around, are made with water bottles from the Flint water crisis as well as our plants. That's a supply chain. That's a supply chain. A supply chain is good, but it's not great. What happens when you break one link? Fun, right? I like to see supply webs. Supply webs. I'm going to show you. So we said, how do we build that up? Let's take some other material that's made out of these PET fibers, polyester fibers, and we'll take the scrap. And they said, John, what can we do with this? The recyclers don't want it, and don't weigh nothing. You fill a truck with it, you got 500 pounds. I said, okay, it looks like home insulation to me, let's get it tested. So we sent it to Underwriter Laboratories, and now we're insulating some homes with it. Challenged neighborhood homes. There's people who really think about, do I buy my medication this month? Or do I pay money? So that's what we've done with some of that. Okay, let's keep going. Let's make filters. Use this material, make good filters. So, got with our filter supplier. We started experimenting, working with him with this material. Introduced him to William T. Burnett. They gave him their specs. Now we're making filters, and we're doing it in Flint at New Life Center. It's the old St. Luke's Parish, an extremely challenged neighborhood there. As part of the Jobs Development Training Program, they're making filters in Flint from Flint water bottles. That's circular. And that's how you steer things beyond the first level of recycling. These are all jobs. These are all jobs. And remember that overseas option, all the money and the economics and the resilience in the community was gone when that left. Okay? All right, we're not done yet. Now we're growing that web, the empowerment plan. Anybody ever hear of it? Everyone's right. Look her up. Veronica Scott. And I heard she was trying to put a project on make coastal homes. So I'm going to help her. So I got with her and got her some material plants. And I got with one of our suppliers. The supplier was giving us a small insulate. As you can see, that's not a square piece. Well, we cut out scrap and made another material from it. And we gave her 4,000 yards of it. And she put it into those coats from previous versions of it. And that material ended up being this material that went into her coats. Well, then that material finally ran out and said, I'm going to make you another material. So that's when this happened, and that's what we've done. We've taken that material. What this is, water bottles, all the insulation for this coat. So, this is a coat. This is made out of scrap and waste. But, there's more to it. Oh, these go to homeless in 23 states and 13 countries. You drive around Detroit, challenge neighborhood in there, you will see people wearing these clothes. They go, that's it. Slick way. Look her up. It's Veronica Scott. I'm going to show you a picture of her. Okay, we're not done. Just recently, because this web is growing, we have to build that supply web so we're being resilient. This is sustainability. So, the empowerment plan, and by the way, some of them coaches are going back to Flint. Cami, they said, hey, we want a piece of this action, right? So our candy plant in Ingersoll, Ontario, zero waste plant, said, well, we got these guys, the Laverne Group, that's supplying us now. So we pulled those guys in. And those guys said, I'll take your water bottles. There they are on the bottom. This one is a work in progress. Everything above is already happening. On the bottom, the Laverne Group, in the yellow, you'll see, they're in Quebec. Now Canada's got a piece of this, and they're processing that, and they're bringing the materials right back. There's a circular piece. Again, another example of how you do these sort of things in terms of building that web. And really it's about connections, and really it's about everybody, you know, coming together that are sitting here today. Find out what people are doing. So there's the engine manifold cover. It's a big, if you pop your hood, you'll see it right on top of your engine. And if you got an Equinox, that's what you'll see if it's a 6-cylinder. That's the insulation piece on the left and the bottom, made out of water bottles. Vehicle part, okay. And if you ever wondered what a Saint looked like, there's one here. There's another picture of the coat, and there's some of the material itself. Veronica Scott looked her up. Outstanding lady. And I think we are about